I'm Jen Hoverstad, Director of Marketing and Engagement for the KL Cancer Fund. And today I am joined by Christine Johnson, who is a member of our Cancer Warrior Network, a cancer warrior herself. Christine, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Jen.
Tell us about your diagnosis. How did you find your cancer?
At 40, I had my first mammogram, and that was fine. And then I got pregnant and had a baby at 41. And so I didn't have my second mammogram until I was 43 after I was finished nursing. And I went in for just, my routine. I'm very good about those things. And they called me and said, "We found calcifications in your mammogram. We need you to come in for another one and possibly a biopsy." So I was like, I don't know what this is all about, but I went in and did the biopsy and took my husband with me to get the results. They said, and it was kind of funny at the time because the physician, who I guess was a radiologist that gave me the results, had an accent, and I couldn't understand what she was saying because I think part of it wasn't processing. When she said ductal carcinoma in situ, I was like, what? Carcinoma was the only word that I picked up, and I was like, what is she talking about? And then I was like, I don't think this is good. And they showed us on the mammogram, I always tell people it looked like dust particles you see in the sunshine. And with DCIS, I didn't know anything about stage 0 cancer. I didn't know what in situ meant. Excuse me. Several months into my journey, I realized that I had been spelling ductal incorrectly. So being an engineering major, I had spelled it ductile instead of ductal the whole time. But, the treatment plan was lumpectomy, and radiation was what I had selected. And so I'm a planner. I was like, okay, I don't have time for this, but let's just get it done. I'll follow what you say to do. And after my first lumpectomy, I went back to see Dr. Georgiade, and he said, well, actually, we found some, I forget what they were called at the time, atypical cells, and we've determined that they are more DCIS that didn't show on the mammogram. So I was like, I'm not ready to go to mastectomy yet. Let's do another lumpectomy. Well, fast forward to 4 lumpectomies. Evidently, I had enough breast tissue to do that. But it had gotten to where I was like, I knew I could have it done. I could be back at work from home the next day and bounce back. But after the 4th lumpectomy, he said we started at the chest wall and started moving towards the nipple. And he said, there was no way to tell what else was in there since none of that had showed on the mammogram. So I was like, okay, I'll do the mastectomy now. So we did one side, just took off the right side and put in a tissue expander. But as far as that goes, that was 3 years ago on the 30th.
DCIS, so ductal carcinoma in situ, as you have said, and stage 0. A lot of people are like, wait, there's a stage 0. Can you explain a little bit about what that diagnosis actually means?
So I learned that in situ means that it has not spread outside of the duct or cells, or the cells have not spread outside of the duct. And it's considered stage 0 because of that. And all the research and doctors that I talked to had said, like, this isn't something that spreads, but it can be a marker depending on what grade of it you have for breast cancer later if not treated.
And so you said you had 4 lumpectomies, and it's been 3 years since your mastectomy. What was the timeline between when you were diagnosed with DCIS and doing those 4 lumpectomies to when you had the mastectomy?
So let's see, I was diagnosed in November 2018. And then, December, I think the end of December was my first lumpectomy, and I had the mastectomy April 30th. So within 5 months, about 5 months,
Wow.
5
That,
surgeries.
do you remember what was, because I mean, that is so many surgeries in a short period of time, not to mention the diagnosis itself is always a very heavy piece of any type of cancer. What was your mental state, emotional state during that time?
Well, in the beginning, I was like, I don't have time for this cancer. And then I realized I never thought of myself as a control freak, but I'm definitely a control freak over my calendar. And I don't know if it was my coping mechanism that I focused on work, but I was like, part of my job that I love is the work travel. And so I was like, can I get to the next trip? Am I going to miss this or miss that. And so, um, I'd never really been put under anesthesia or any of those things. My husband went with me to all the appointments. I had a great supportive friends that came to visit and bring food.
Mm.
And one of my best friends from high school took a week off of work the week of my mastectomy and came and stayed
Wow.
with me. And she was just like, "You have too many people visiting." I'm like, "Well, I'm just sitting here on the couch. My mouth still works. I can move." I cried when I got the initial diagnosis and it hit me. And then every time I had to schedule a surgery, I would cry.
Mm.
But overall, I was positive. I was like, okay, this is, what they said. We're going to do lumpectomy, then we're going to do radiation. Well, then when I found out I needed the mastectomy and then there would be no radiation, I'm like, well, now I don't have to think about driving to Durham 5 days a week and fighting traffic from
Right.
APA.
And one of the things too that I think really allows you to help women who are moms is the fact that your kids were younger as you were going through this process. What was that like, explaining to your kids the surgeries? Did you explain to them your diagnosis because they were 6 and 2? Is that right when you were diagnosed?
Yeah, my 2-year-old, didn't understand why I couldn't pick him up for a while, but my mom was here to help a lot. And one thing we actually had to do was turn his car seat around a little earlier than I wanted to so that he could at least climb in to the
Mm.
car. But my 6-year-old, I had talked to several people and just said, how do I explain, this major surgery? They're going to see a difference in my body. And so, what one friend had suggested was just saying, parts of your body can get sick and that you can live without certain parts of your body and that the doctor's going to take it so that, I'm not sick anymore. And
How are you doing now? How 3 years later after your mastectomy? How are you doing? How are you feeling?
well, I feel like sometimes I'm like, did this really happen? And then I'm like, is it my memory? I mean, I struggled for a long time with like the survivor label, because I know so many people have been through so much more with chemo and radiation and surgeries. And, knowing that I love the word warrior because that is what I feel like. I'm a warrior and I'm going to, help other people to be warriors and invite them into the network so that they have a support group
You've
because
given back to the fund, over the past couple of months with our 2021 celebration run walk. You raised nearly $800 as part of that fundraiser. Why did you choose to take part and be a fundraiser with that event?
well, first, being an NC State grad, I've always followed KL's story, and then with the Run Walk, I've always been really involved in the community, but I had not really picked a nonprofit to support as far as breast cancer or research or support. And so when I saw the Run Walk was coming up, I was like, this is something I can do to support women. I like that it supports women with all types of cancer, and the NC State connection is great too. So I just sent emails out to everyone, friends, family, and like I was telling you earlier, some people that I hadn't seen in years but am connected to on social media donated, and it was just great to see that number climbing and climbing. So I definitely am going to do it every year now.
Now, before I let you go, I do know, like you said, you have encouraged and been a cheerleader for so many women who are going through cancer right now or who have in the past few years. What do you say to those women to encourage them, or what would you say to the woman who's just been diagnosed?
I mean, I would say to definitely ask for help, accept help from people. Sometimes you don't even know what you're going to need. And, I definitely didn't expect a friend to, out of state, take a week off work and come stay with me. She just said, hey, I'm going to do it. So also reaching out and finding people who have gone through what you're going to go through so you can get the questions answered, because it is a lot to process. Websites can tell you so much, but I think talking to people can make a difference too. You just never know, who you can connect to, or if you're looking for something specific that you want to find out, then definitely do it.
Christine, we are so thankful for your involvement with the fund, for your involvement with Cancer Warrior Network, and for your willingness to share your story to encourage other women. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Jen.